Pittsburgh Penguins make 2 trades, and I'm gonna be honest, I don't get either of them. Well, one of them makes perfect sense for the Penguins. The other one is very interesting. But here's one thing I know. Kyle Dubas loves his guys because he trades one of his guys in one of the deals in return to get one of his guys. The Pittsburgh Penguins acquire Luke Schenn, who Dubas acquired for the Leafs at the trade deadline 2 years ago, and Tommy Novak in exchange for former Sioux Greyhound Michael Bunting and a 4th-round pick in 2026. So the Penguins, who I think a lot of people assume are going to be sellers at this trade deadline, actually trade a pick away to get 2 players. The Nashville Predators acquire a 4th-round pick and Michael Bunting. And I look at Pittsburgh, and I look at Nashville, and I say, all right, surely both teams are flipping everything they got, right? Like why are the Preds holding on to Michael Bunting, right? Why are the Penguins holding on to Luke Schenn and Tommy Novak? Surely something else is coming. Well, maybe, but here's what Chris Johnston had to say. Here's what CJ said. While it's certainly possible the Pens flip Luke Schenn, a team in their position has to consider everything. There's nothing pre-baked here in terms of another shoe to drop immediately. They like his leadership, character, and toughness, and he signed through next season. Tommy Novak, meanwhile, is also signed for next season. In fact, he's only in year 1 of 3, making $3.5 million. That's from puckpedia.com. It's interesting. The Pens and the Preds, I don't feel like are in a true rebuild. Like, they're not in a tear it down to the nothing. They're not in a burn it to ash rebuild. They're not doing what the Sharks have done, what the Blackhawks have done, what the Sabres have done like 3-4 times. The Preds were really, really good last year, and then they added mostly and got way worse. I don't think they think they're bad. Maybe they think they're bad now, but I don't think they think they're going to be bad next year. And I think the same goes for the Penguins. I don't think the Penguins, as long as they have Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin and Chris Letang and Erik Karlsson, they don't think they're a bottoming out team. They got Vinny Desharnais earlier this season. They flip him. They get Luke Schenn, who's probably a much better version of Vinny Desharnais, albeit older. And then they get Tommy Novak, who's kind of in the prime of his career. He's 27. He's got 13 goals after a horrible, no good first 2 months of the season. He's actually kind of recovered and been okay on an otherwise pretty bad Predators team. Bunting is an interesting one because Bunting is a very useful player. You can use him in a lot of offensive situations. He adds snarl to your team. The one flag I would throw here is he's kind of becoming a bit of a suitcase, eh? He was on Arizona, chose to leave for the Leafs for a couple of years, and it was smart. I'm going to sign for $900,000 for 2 years, and I'm going to play probably in their top 6 a whole bunch, and I'm going to score a bunch, and I'm going to cash out. That's exactly what he did. Signs a big multi-million-dollar deal in Carolina before getting immediately traded to the Pittsburgh Penguins, pretty much. And he spent a little bit of time in Pittsburgh, about a year, maybe a little more. And then he got traded again, this time to Nashville. He's got a year left at 4.5. 14 goals, 15 assists for 29 points in 58 games. He's probably the best performing player in this deal this season. At very least, the best performing forward. Not by like a crazy margin either, and he's also the highest paid player in this trade. Listen, the Pens might flip some of the guys they got. They might flip Tommy Novak. They might flip Luke Schenn. Tommy Novak, considering the market on forwards this year and how it's drying up, I don't think that's actually a bad asset to have and try to flip. I think teams are wanting this guy. Luke Schenn, teams are obviously wanting. Same with Bunting. You could probably do worse than getting Michael Bunting for a run in the playoffs. Purely guessing, I think the Preds are getting Michael Bunting because they want him. They want him going forward. Purely guessing. I could be wrong. I could look stupid. Later tonight. I was about to say tomorrow. Later tonight. Tommy Novak, I'm not as sure of, although if I was Pittsburgh, I'd be working the phones because, again, that forward market is drying up. A lot of guys have moved. Yanni Gourde, Oliver Bjorkstrand. People are asking for a king's ransom for like Braden Schenn, who may or may not even get traded. Brock Nelson, who may or may not even get traded. Ryan Donato. Why not throw Tommy Novak in there? Let him be someone's silver medal or whatever. The difference is I think that is something Kyle Dubas and the Pittsburgh Penguins would do. Or maybe do one of them, or maybe do none of them, or maybe keep them for this season, see how they play, and trade them at the draft, or trade them next year at the deadline, or just keep them. One thing I can say for certain, I do not think Luke Schenn and Tommy Novak are going to walk away from their time in Pittsburgh. They're going to get traded at some point, whether it's now or later. The asterisk being, well, what if they make the playoffs next season? Which, well, you know, one season can change a whole lot. Just look at the Preds. I'll be honest, this is a really confusing trade. Pittsburgh's end of it, I understand more than Nashville's. Even though Nashville gets a pick, it's a fourth. Let's be honest. But you don't see this at the deadline very often, two sellers making a deal. And then the Penguins make another deal with another seller. The Sharks, the San Jose Sharks, acquire Vinny Desharnais, who the Penguins had just gotten from the Canucks, for a 5th round pick in 2028. Like, between now and when the Penguins actually get to use that 2028 5th rounder, there will be an Olympics and probably World Cup of Hockey or another four-nation face-off. Out of Crosby, Malkin, Letang, and Karlsson, how many of them will even still be playing in 2028? So what's in it for the Pens? I don't know if there's necessarily anything in it for the Pens. They free up a little bit of cap space, all right? The Sharks get a player who they obviously want or intend to flip, or he's going to fill the spot of someone who they do end up trading out of town. But one thing Kyle Dubas often did in Toronto is if there was someone who was way down in the lineup, or he just wasn't a great fit, or whatever it was, it just wasn't working out great for them in Toronto, you just trade him to do right by them. You know what? I'm going to trade you just to let you move on with your career. That's the sort of thing he would do. A lot of times it was legitimately the right and kind thing to do. Other times it would drive fans completely nuts. Getting Desharnais off the books, especially when you got Luke Schenn, and getting a draft pick out of it, even if it's a few years down the line, this is Kyle Dubas to a T, and it makes sense. It's not a huge deal, but it makes sense. The Sharks getting Desharnais, that's interesting. I don't know. I'd be curious to see if he's still a Shark by the end of the week. So, Penguins fans, Preds fans, Sharks fans, what do you think of these deals? Particularly the Preds and Penguins deal. Bunting and a draft pick going to the Preds with Luke Schenn and Tommy Novak going to the Penguins. This is a head scratcher. Let me know. But for now, that is it for this one. Thank you very much for watching. Click like if you like this video. Click subscribe if you really liked it. Tell all your friends. SDPN, this YouTube channel is where you have to be Friday for the NHL trade deadline.